Okay, let's dive right into this. Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're unpacking a story that literally shook the tech world to its core: the astonishing 3-week global ban of Anthropic's most powerful AI models, CLAUDE Fable 5 and Mythos 5. We're going to break down exactly what happened, the wild backroom geopolitical drama that unfolded, and most importantly, what this unprecedented government intervention actually means for enterprise survival moving forward. Here's our roadmap for today. We'll cover the 18-day AI crisis, look into why the government intervened, break down the cost of compliance, zoom out to the global AI race, and finally wrap up with the enterprise playbook. All right, part 1, the 18-day AI crisis, from launch to lockdown. So, when Anthropic launched Fable 5 and its sibling Mythos 5 back on June 9th, 2026, the initial impact was absolutely massive. I mean, look at the engineering team at Stripe. They used Fable 5 to migrate a 50 million-line Ruby codebase in a single day. Think about that for a second. A project they originally scoped out for 2 whole months, completely finished in 24 hours. It was, without a doubt, a total game changer for enterprise automation. But, that honeymoon phase, it didn't last long at all. And this brilliantly illustrates the sheer volatility we're dealing with here. We go from this incredibly hyped launch on June 9th straight into an emergency export control lockdown by the US government just 72 hours later, literally 3 days. Because Anthropic couldn't verify user nationality in real time at the API layer, they had to just pull the plug globally. It took all the way until July 1st for Fable 5 to fully come back online. And in the meantime, thousands of companies had their workflows abruptly, completely severed. Which brings us to part 2, why the government intervened, the Amazon saga. To really understand why the US government took such unprecedented, immediate action against one of its own leading tech champions, well, it all boils down to a single security report. Researchers figured out a way to bypass Fable 5's safety guardrails, basically tricking the model into hunting for software vulnerabilities and then actually spitting out exploit code. But here is the bitter, bitter irony of this whole thing. The researchers who authored that vulnerability report, the one that triggered the massive federal shutdown, they were from Amazon. Yeah, Amazon, one of Anthropic's very first and largest financial backers, who had pumped something like $8 billion into them. You really can't make this stuff up. Now, naturally, Anthropic pushed back on this. Their internal testing proved that Fable 5 wasn't actually uniquely dangerous. It turns out competitor models from both the US and China, we're talking OpenAI's GPT 5.5, Moonshot's Kimi Key 0.7, they could all produce that exact same exploit demonstration. So this wasn't just a Fable 5 problem, right? It was a general capability inherent to pretty much all frontier models on the market. But, of course, arguing doesn't break a regulatory logjam. Anthropic had to actually build a technical solution. So what they did was develop an automated safety classifier, which was put to the test by the Commerce Department's Sinai Center. The result? It successfully blocks that Amazon exploit technique in over 99% of cases. Basically, when a prompt gets flagged and blocked, the active session just automatically downgrades to an older, safer model, Opus 4.8. And this technical compromise? That's what ultimately got the ban lifted. Moving right along to Section 3, the cost of compliance. Now, what's really interesting about this resolution is the heavy operational friction it introduced. One of the major non-negotiable conditions for Fable 5's return is a mandatory 30-day data retention requirement. Anthropic is now forced to hold on to all prompts and model completions for at least 30 days by default. And no, you cannot opt out. For heavily regulated industries like healthcare or finance, who, usually operate under strict zero retention compliance policies for sensitive data, this is a massive, potentially deal-breaking hurdle. And honestly, the legal status of the models themselves is still completely fragmented. On one hand, Fable 5 has its global access fully restored, but then you look at its highly specialized cybersecurity sibling, Mythos 5, and it's basically only half released. Export controls were technically lifted, sure, but access is severely bottlenecked. It's limited exclusively to a vetted set of US organizations through a government program called Project Glasswing. So the government is playing this very active, ongoing role in gatekeeping who actually gets to use this tech. Which brings us to a huge question that industry critics are asking right now, and maybe you're wondering this too. Can you really trust platforms that governments can just shut down overnight? Because what started as a localized crisis for Anthropic has kind of ripped the lid off a much larger global geopolitical fallout. That leads perfectly into part 4, the global AI race. To fully grasp how the landscape is shifting here, we have to look back at the June 2nd executive order.
This mandate requires federal agencies to establish a 30-day benchmarking and capability assessment process for any new AI models before they hit the public. In practice, this means standard everyday product launches are morphing into complex, negotiated national security reviews. And hey, it's not just Anthropic feeling the heat. OpenAI is currently navigating these exact same staggered rollout hurdles with their GPT 5.6 models as we speak.
So, the crucial point is when you compare this situation on a global scale, the metrics are incredibly stark. American models are bogged down by government delays, looming export control risks, and massive price tags, up to $60 per million tokens. Meanwhile, Chinese labs are sprinting aggressively in the exact opposite direction. They're dropping unrestricted open-weight models with instant access and boasting prices as crazy low as 40 cents per million tokens. So while American deployment is tapping the brakes for security checks, international competitors are absolutely flooring it through open channels. This entire 18-day saga, it was a massive wake-up call for the entire tech community. AI founder Alex Finn really hit the nail on the head when he said, no company or government will ever be able to take away your local models. And that sentiment is spreading like wildfire. Developers are waking up to the fact that relying on a single centralized API is a huge strategic liability. So they're pivoting hard toward local open weights infrastructure to build a wall against all this federal volatility. All right, let's wrap this up with part 5, the enterprise playbook. If there's one thing CIOs and CTOs need to take away from this, it's a core strategy called model sovereignty. What this means is you're no longer blindly tethered to one vendor. Instead, you deploy proxy layers to dynamically reroute your critical pipelines away from proprietary APIs, like Anthropic or OpenAI, over to locally hosted open weights alternatives. It completely neutralizes that single point of failure vulnerability that just crippled so many businesses during the ban. So how do we actually do this? Here are the exact steps to build out your multi-model fallback architecture. Step 1, deploying those proxy layers so you can route your requests on the fly. Step 2, maintain robust local open-weight alternatives. Models like Minimax M3 or QN 3.7 Max are crushing it on benchmarks right now. And step 3, for the love of God, regularly test your failover systems. If your primary API gets slapped with a regulatory lockout tomorrow, your backup models need to kick in automatically so your pipelines don't even skip a beat. But hold on, before you go spinning everything up, you absolutely have to calculate the real financial cost here. Let's look at Fable 5. It sits at $10 for input and $50 for output. That is $60 total per million tokens. That makes Fable 5 the most expensive frontier model on the market by a massive margin. I mean, it's nearly double the cost of GPT 5.6 and exponentially more expensive than those open-weight alternatives. You've got to run the numbers and make absolutely sure the ROI actually makes sense for your specific use cases. So let's just quickly recap the immediate practical steps you need to take before going all in and integrating Fable 5 into your workflows. 1. Confirm your legal team is okay with that 30-day data retention requirement. 2. Accurately calculate your usage costs. 3. Get that proxy fallback architecture configured. 4. Definitely take advantage of the free promotional testing window before July 7th. And finally, you have to evaluate how the new safety classifiers, false positive rates, are going to impact your day-to-day coding tasks. The era of the hassle-free, move fast, and break things AI model launch? Yeah, that's officially over. We are living in a brand new reality of supervised AI, where we're constantly balancing cutting-edge innovation with national security. Which leaves us with this final, really provocative question to think about as you build out your enterprise infrastructure. Does strict domestic regulation actually ensure our security, or does it just transfer all that innovation to faster, unrestricted competitors overseas? It is the absolute core tension of this new era, and it makes achieving true model sovereignty more critical than it has ever been. Thanks so much for joining us for this explainer, and we will catch you next time.